In our previous video, I demonstrated how you can install Pi-hole on Ubuntu. Today, we will go over some options and configurations we can do within the Pi-hole application itself. If you're not familiar with Pi-hole and how to install it, I will post a link in the description for the previous video, as well as a card on the top right hand corner, so you can go ahead and watch that if you don't know how to install Pi-hole. So assuming that you have already installed Pi-hole and you would like to do some configurations, let's go ahead and open the application and see what we can do. So we will access the web UI or web GUI by going into Firefox here. And I already have opened Pi-hole before, so I'm just going to go in here. So that's my Pi-hole IP address. This is from this same IP address from the previous video that I have already posted, as I mentioned. So since the previous demonstration, I have connected few clients and generated some data so that I can show you that, how the data would show up. So on your main Pi-hole page, once you logged in, and this is what you get. So you will have some information about queries, the number of blocks that happen, and the percentage of blocks that have done. And obviously the list that contain all the information related to the ad blocks. On this page, if you go down, you will also see information from the last 24 hours and the client activities related to last 24 hours. Because I'm doing this in the lab environment, I don't have much data, but it shows some data from coming up right here. And on the bottom of the page, you'll have the query type. So we have IPv4, IPv6, and we have some other information related to that type of queries. And you also have the upstream server related information. So I'm primarily using the Google DNS. So you can see the Google DNS showing up here, right here. For example, this part is the Google DNS, and this part is also the Google DNS, the yellow part, and this blue part. And there are other information such as the cache DNS. So right here, it shows the cache DNS. So it includes some information that are useful to you as a home user or a system administrator that can be used to troubleshoot your system. On the bottom of the page, you can have the information related to, the top permitted domains. So those are permitted domains, mean the domains that actually go through, and the blocked domains on the right hand side. So these are some blocked domains that has been blocked as a result of the block list that we have added here. On the bottom of the page, on the very bottom, you have the clients that are connected. So currently there's only one client connected to this Pi-hole, and I will be showing you how you can connect a Windows 11 machine in this video. But for now, I only have that one client connected. And in here, it has that information listed here, once the new clients get connected. So this is the basic overview of what you would get on the main page of the Pi-hole. Now, the first thing I'm going to do before we go into some advanced configurations and settings, I'm going to show you how you can direct the DNS to this Pi-hole from a Windows machine, because most of you guys will be connecting Windows clients on your network, and then directing the DNS request towards this Pi-hole, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to open up a Windows machine. So this is my Windows virtual machine, and if you go to your Windows, if you go, like, let's say you browse the internet, every single time you search something, let's say sanuja.com, it actually goes through some kind of a DNS. So most likely, if you're a home user, this DNS is basically a domain name server owned by your internet service provider, ISP. Unless you have changed some configuration manually, this DNS is through ISP. And remember from my previous lectures and videos on my YouTube channel, what a DNS is doing is basically humans are more capable of remembering names than numbers. So all of these domains, for example, sanuja.com has a specific IP address, such as 192.175.5.6 206.65.44.99, for example. Like there's some kind of IP address associated with this web address. Because humans are more capable of remembering names, what we do actually, we just type sanuja.com, and then what the DNS is doing is it's a domain name server. So it's take your request for that domain and go and fetch the IP address related to this website. There's a little bit more to DNS than that, but this is the general overview of how DNS work. There are some port numbers, association, AAA records, etc., which you don't need to worry about as a home user, but that's what basically DNS does. So when you sign up with an ISP, your internet service provider, ISP, the company that you are buying the internet from, would have their own DNS, or they would be directing your request to a public DNS such as DNS such as the Google DNS, which is publicly available. So either way, that's how your DNS works on a Windows machine. Now, if you want to check your default DNS configuration and how you get to this place, the sanuja.com or whatever the website you went to on a Windows machine, you can go to your start menu. It doesn't matter it's Windows 11 or 10. I'm using a Windows 11, but it doesn't really matter. And you can go CMD, which is the command prompt, and you're going to open the command prompt. And in here, we can type ns lookup. So ns space it's a one word, ns lookup. And if you press enter, that will give you the default server names, server information. So right here, you can see that you have some information about the IP address of your machine itself. And then if I type in something like www. Just type sanuja.com, for example, press enter, it'll give you the server information. So it might come back with a error message like authorization issues, non-authoritative answer, I mean. But you can get that some DNS information right here. There are some DNS information showing up. So that's how you can look it up. So this is if you haven't changed anything and you want to check it out quickly, this is what you can do. So I will make it a little bit bigger. So this is what it look like. So you run the ns lookup command on the command prompt, and that will give you the option to enter information to check your DNS information. Now, our goal here is to connect this Windows 11 machine DNS to this Pi-hole. So it's going to be going through this Pi-hole, and we'll be using the block list. And as a network administrator or a home user, now you would be able to block websites and control what information being accessed through your network, right? Before we actually add the DNS to this particular machine, we need to make sure that your client, in this case this Windows 11 machine, have access to the DNS sinkhole we are trying to point into, right? So remember, the Pi-hole has an IP address which is 192.168.26.5, and we need to make sure this IP can be accessed or pinged by the client. So to do that, we go to the start menu and go to CMD, which is command prompt, and we're going to type ping, and I'm going to make this thing a little bit bigger so it's easy for you to see. And we're going to ping the Pi-hole IP address. So in my case, it's 192.168.26. I believe it's 26.5. So we're going to put 26.5, and I'm going to press enter. What that's going to do, it's going to give me a confirmation that this machine can reach the Pi-hole IP address. Because if you can't do that, then there's no point adding this to the DNS, because that's not going to work. So just make sure that you have the access. So typically you will install the Pi-hole on the same local area network, and the IP address of the Pi-hole machine and the Pi-hole configuration related IP address, which is in this case this IP address, should be accessible by all your clients that would be using that Pi-hole as its DNS server. So that's the first thing we need to do. So on your client machine, for example, in this Windows 11, what we're going to do, we're going to go to start, and we're going to type control panel, and we're going to open control panel, and in here change this to category if you have small icons or small icon or large icon. If but in either options you will have these options available anyway. So what we need to do, we need to go to internet, network and internet right here. So that's where we need to go. So if you have this thing in a small icon, for example, or large icon, it's here as well, right here, network and sharing. If you click on that, it'll get you to the similar place. But most of you will have this thing as the category icon. So you're going to click on the network and internet, and then we're going to go into view status. So right here. So I have 2 network cards. So you might have multiple network cards too. For example, if you have a Wi-Fi connection, you will have a Wi-Fi card associated here as well. And under the card which you want to direct traffic into to this one. So if you have a Wi-Fi card and a local area network card, and you want to make sure that all internet pass through this pi hole, you need to direct all DNS on both cards towards the pi hole. But in my case, I'm only have internet connection through one of the cards. The other one is a dummy card. So I'm going to click on that card, and it'll get you this window. And in here, we're going to click on properties. And under properties, we're going to go into IPv4 because that's what we are using. And we're going to go to properties of the IPv4. And right now, the DNS is set to automatic, and we're going to change it to manual. And in here, we're going to change that DNS IP address to this one, which is 192.168.26.5. So I'm going to change it to 192.168.26.5. So this is the DNS that we're going to direct to, the traffic going to get direct to from this machine. So you had to do this on every single client on your network so that it will go through this pi hole. So after you do that, you can click OK. You also have the ability here under properties of this IPv4 to add a secondary DNS in case this server goes down. So for home use, if you have children, for example, and you don't want them to go through anything but the pi hole, I would just leave the pi hole only. But for any other use, I would also add a backup, like such as a Google DNS. But if you add a backup like this, for example, so if I add a backup like this and press OK, what's going to happen is if the computer cannot see this DNS or this pi hole goes down, what will happen is this, it will go and use this DNS, this secondary DNS to access the internet. So that kind of defeats the purpose of monitoring your traffic and logging your traffic and controlling, what website that your client is accessing. So that's why I will just get rid of that if in that case, and we'll just have this one. You just need to make sure this Ubuntu server or Ubuntu machine or Linux machine with the pi hole is up and running all the time. Otherwise, your clients, users in your network will lose access to the websites. So that's what we did first, and we're going to click OK. Another thing I do also, I disable IPv6 because most homes nowadays probably not still on IPv6. They are still on IPv4 and probably have NAT. And if you don't know what NAT is, I have already done a video. Again, I will post a link in the description if you like to know what NAT is, and I will also can post a flag on the top right hand corner. I would disable IPv6 because most home users are not going to use it, and that will eliminate any possibility of somebody using IPv6 to access the internet and bypassing our pi hole applications, right? So if we're going to click close here. And now if you go into the pi hole and if you go to dashboard, it will probably going to say only one user. Oh no, it already does show the second user. So it, it shows that second user that just came up. So we connected that machine, this machine, the Windows 10 machine, and here's that Windows 10 machine showing up, this one. See right here. So now the Windows 10 machine is now connected to this pi hole. It start handing out, filtering information and handing out the DNS requests to this machine. So now when I go to this sanuja.com, if I refresh it, this request is actually going through here. So if you look at the clients and blocks, it's keep changing, and it's going to keep changing. One of the reason is because I'm here. And if I go to the go to the default page, so if I close this one and if I reopen it, this page have some ads, and it's clearly have some ads, and some of those ads no longer going to appear, or those ads, when you click on it, it'll get blocked. Like this is an ad, so let's see if it get blocked. Okay, so that one didn't get blocked because maybe that's not on the list. So you need to find an ad that actually on the list. And if there, if it is blocked, one of these things, and it's gonna get blocked because of this thing is blocking, because see, it's showing its percentage of blocks. So let me show you something that actually get blocked. Actually, let's go to my own website. So if I go to sanuja.com, and if I go in here, and if I go to this one, for example, in here I have an ad place, I believe at the top, and an ad place at the bottom, but you don't see those ads because that's now blocked. See, there's an ad right here from Google on my website, but it's not appearing right now because it is now blocked by this one. So that's how the Pi-hole works. It's just go check against the list that we have, and this list does have the Google ads, Google ad AdSense, which is doubleclick.net, as well as Google AdSense, and that list is being used to block that information. So that's why. So if we go to another site, for example, something with a lot of ads, such as CNN.com, and if I press enter, and if I go in here, you can see this number going to change. So wait 1 second, enter, and if I go into this one, see this number changing. See, because CNN website have a lot of ads, and see, because the data is going through this Pi-hole, the Pi-hole is blocking whole bunch of information. So that's how you can connect a Windows 11 machine. Now you can follow the same step for connecting Windows 10 machine. And let's go through some information, data that we have collected as a result of connecting this Windows 10 machine, right? So you can go to YouTube as well. That will block a bunch of stuff as well. So now we have a Pi-hole, and now you know how to connect a Windows 11 machine. Now we will go through a little bit of in depth of what we have in this Pi-hole application. So in this web GUI, as I mentioned before, if you go down, you will have the clients here. You will have the information related to the permitted domains and the block domains, and this information is live, and it will change as people visiting different sites and clicking on different things. And that will result in changing of gathering that data. Now on the right hand side, you will have a bunch of options that can be used to monitor or change the behavior of your Pi-hole. The first one that I'm gonna show you is the settings part. So on the left hand side, if you go to settings, you can see all the settings that we have done during the installation process. So since my last video, I haven't changed anything on this Pi-hole. It is as it is. So these are the settings that we have selected as we go through this installation process. Some of these settings can be changed. Some of them are hard coded. So for example, there are some information about FTL information. FTL is a service that used by the Pi-hole to provide some DNS caching and DNS information, and that's showing up here. And then if you go to DNS, we pick the Google DNS during the installation process. So the Google DNS is selected here. You have the option to select additional DNS, like for example, if you want to select Open DNS, you can click on check Open DNS right here. You can also select the IPv6 DNS if you are interested in IPv6 for your Pi-hole application right here. and you have the ability to also create a DNS based on whatever your custom configuration. So you can create custom DNS by adding a custom DNS information right here. So for example, I can do this, and you can go 192.168.1.5, for example, if I have a DNS server like that. So you have the ability to add that on the DNS tab. And you also have these few other options, like make sure your Pi-hole is properly firewalled. You can put firewall configuration. You can select permit all. You can use the recommended settings, or you can select some configurations options here. And what this is going to do is this will add an additional layer of security by adding some firewall settings to your Pi-hole application. So if you don't have a firewall set up on your router, or you have a firewall set up on your router but you need additional firewall setup, you can set up right here. So you can make it so that the Pi-hole network interface, in this case ENS33, would be the only one that will be used, or you can use the bind only to that interface, or permit all origins, or you can use the recommended setting. So you have the option to select that one. As a home user, if you don't know much about network engineering or network infrastructure, I would keep it as the recommended settings. But if you're interested in learning about network engineering and network infrastructure, I will leave links in the description of this video to my lecture series on CCNA. And that way you can learn a little bit about network infrastructure and why these settings matter and how these settings works, right? For now, if you don't know much about these things, you can just leave it at the default settings. I typically, even for home users with no experience in IT, recommend that adding more than one DNS server, just in case if the Google DNS goes down. Typically that never happen, almost never happen, but just in case, you can add multiple DNS here. I would not add all the DNSs here. I would just add the couple of upstream DNSs, just to keep it clean and not very convoluted here. And if you go down the list here under settings DNS, we have some options related to advanced DNS settings. For example, never forward non-FQDN A and AAA queries. So what that does is by default it is checked off, and also this one is checked off as well, the never forward reverse lookup for private IP ranges. So what these two are doing is, these are really good security settings to protect your network from being attacked. So when there is a Pi-hole domain that's set, and this box is ticked, and this will ask the TFL that the domain is purely local, and if the TLS may answer queries from there, and then the DHCP leases out should never forward the queries on that domain to upstream servers. So if a conditional forwarding is enabled and if it is unticked, that will cause the partial DNS loop under certain circumstances. So that's why you need to make it sure that it is checked off. So these are default configuration. I'm not going to read through the next one. Just read it over. It's in your settings under DNS tab. You can read it over. I would not check these things out. I will keep it as default and check it off, so that you have the best possible scenario for your configuration. And on the bottom, a little bit bottom of your page, you will have the DNS sec, which validates the DNS request. Again, you can read it through this. I'm doing this video for home users, so I'm not going to go through in depth. You can just read it through this if you are interested in advanced configurations. And here is a rate limiting also. This is block clients more than 1,000 queries within 60 seconds. That is like a prevention of DDoS type of thing. So again, you can read it through, and these are conditional forwarding information as well. Again, you can use the conditional forwarding checked off here if you're interested in that, but I'm not going to do that. But I did add the DNS upstream server, or for the additional one, the open DNS. So for home users, just keep this as all recommended settings, except I would add an additional DNS, and you can pick any one of these DNSs. It doesn't really matter. I just picked the second one down in the list, which is OpenDNS. And don't enable IPv6 unless you need to, because it just create overhead. So if you just are on IPv4 configuration, just pick the IPv4 configuration. So I'm going to save that because I just changed that option. So when you save anything, it'll give some information at the top, just like you saw for a few seconds, and it'll confirm that the save has been done. So next one we're going to check on the settings, going to be the DHCP. So let's go and click the DHCP tab up at the top right here. So in here, in this tab, we have some options to enable DHCP. Now, Pi-hole by default does not turn on the DHCP server. I do not recommend for home users to turn on this DHCP server unless you are going into your ISP provided router or your home router and disabling your current DHCP setup. For most home users, don't touch this because there is no need for you to create DHCP here. But if you choose to use Pi-hole also as a DHCP server and disable your DHCP servers elsewhere, you can do that by selecting this button, checking off. And it will give you a message, warning message. Make sure your router's DHCP server is disabled when using Pi-hole DHCP server, because having two DHCP servers is the worst case scenario. So for most home users, do not turn this thing on. Just keep it unchecked. Don't turn it on. But if you choose to enable this DHCP server, just like this warning is telling you, make sure that you disable any other DHCP servers in your local area network. That includes your home router's DHCP if there is one, or if there's a router modem combination provided to you by your service provider, you need to make sure that DHCP is turned off. For home users, again, I don't recommend turning on it, but if you want, if you're interested, this is where you do that one. Here is the option to configure your APIs and web interface. API stand for Application Programming Interface. And again, these are some advanced setup. Don't touch it. If you don't know much about this, just leave it as it is. The only thing that a home user might change is the web interface settings. Like currently we are using Pi-hole auto theme, which is right now the dark theme because my machine, Ubuntu machine, is set to dark, but you can force it to go to light theme, and you can force it to go to a dark theme or choose from here. Like for example, default light theme look like this. See, this is what the default Pi-hole the configuration web GUI look like, but I like dark, so I keep it as automatic dark. So I'm gonna go in here. And you can also add an administrator email address. Now, this is important. This is very important. If you forget your password for this web GUI, the administrator email address can help you recover that password. It is highly recommended that you enter an email address here. So I'm going to enter my website email address, so admin@sanuja.net. And I'm gonna say save. This is then can now be used to recover your password. So when you initially install your Pi-hole, in my previous video, we never enter an email address. So it is important that you add this as soon as possible. So in case you forget your password or something goes wrong, you can recover your password. So when you go in here, you'll come into this page once you logged in. Just quickly go to the settings. Go to the API web interface, and the first thing I would do on any setup is to add an administrative password and save it. What that's going to do, that's going to make sure that there is a way for you to recover your passwords on this Pi-hole machine. And at the bottom of this page on the API web interface, you have also some options related to the Pi-hole that has some regional specific configurations, such as, for example, you can change it to Kelvin or Fahrenheit. I don't know who use Kelvin for CPU temperature. Some people maybe. I like Celsius, so I will keep it in Celsius. These are used for like logs and other troubleshooting information in this machine. And radio buttons, you can use the primary, or you can change to whatever the way you liking. You can use colorful query logs. Basically the query logs will have more color, and there are some options that you can do, that you can change up here. The API, again, not something that you are interested in, but if you're as a home user, but if you're a computer programmer, API stands for application programming interface, and this is what this is exactly is, right? So I'm not gonna go into depth of that. Just don't touch this if you're not familiar with that. I might do a separate video on advanced configurations with API and Pi-hole and advanced settings later, but this is for home users that I'm doing this video for, right? So that's why I'm just going to skip through some of those things. Under privacy, you can see how the DNS resolver privacy level works. Remember, during the installation process, we pick the show everything and record everything, but you can select the hide domains and clients, and anonymous mode. What the hide domains is going to do is it's going to disable the top permitted domains and top block domains tables on the dashboard. And the hide domains and clients, basically it's going to hide the client's information as well. And the anonymous mode basically make it everything anonymous. For home use and even corporate or business use, if you're using this in a small business, typically probably not on a corporate environment, because Pi-hole is geared towards home users and enthusiasts. I would always keep it as show everything and record everything, because what's the point of having a Pi-hole and with all these granular control, if you don't know what's going on, right? So I will put it in a show everything and record everything, unless you are seriously concerned about privacy within your local area network. So this option what it's going to do, if you go to these query logs, all of this information, like for example, the fact that this particular localhost machine went to this ubuntu.com, those are all get logged, right? So that's what that means. So if you go in here, that it shows that what is being blocked and all that information, that's what it's doing in here, because we have show everything, right? So that's what that information. Again, don't worry about the teleporter information. I would leave it as it is, as the default. However, one thing that is really cool here is the backup. So backup your Pi-hole configuration and listing as a downloadable archive. So if you go into that settings option, so settings, teleporter, if you click on this backup, what's going to do, it's going to download this .gz file, and now you can use that file to restore. So like if I on the right hand side on the restore window, I can select all what needs to be restored. So you don't need to restore everything. If you just want to restore a couple of items here after a crash or something happen, you can select that, and then you go to browse, and then you go to the downloads, and then or wherever you download it, and you select that file, and you can click on restore, and you can also select the clear the existing data. I always clear the existing data when you restore something. The reason for being that will eliminate any configuration conflicts and issues between current running Pi-hole and the restored data. So if you have changed some configuration on the current Pi-hole, since you have made the backup, that might create some conflicts. So I would always select this one, clear existing data, and then click restore. What that's going to do, it's going to restore from file. So that's under settings, teleporter. You can backup by clicking here. That's going to create a backup file like that. And you can restore it under here, and you can selectively select what needed to be restored. So that's some basic information about settings of this Pi-hole configuration. Now I'm going to go through a few other options on the left hand pane. So the next option I'm going to show you is the query log. So I went through this a little bit when I was clicking through the Pi-hole a few minutes ago. What query log is, basically it shows the log of all the data that being passed through this Pi-hole, and it includes the type of data, the time in which this machine or device have tried to reach that domain, the machine or the client's information. So localhost is this Ubuntu machine itself. That's the localhost where the Pi-hole is installed, and this is basically the machine that we just connected. This is a Windows 10 machine. So if you have some data coming through here, and that will get shown up here very quickly, and that's how it works. So like it contains a lot of information right here. For example, that machine is accessing some information here. So as it's accessing, the data shows up here, and there are a lot of information here, and because of that there is a way to filter it out. So if you go to the top right hand corner under search, you can search everything related to this client, for example. So I can copy this client, so it's easy for me, and I can type it in here. Or I can just type 192.168.26.6 and press enter. And what that's going to do, it's going to select everything with that IP address, that client IP address, and it's going to show up only that information. And you can do localhost as well. Localhost. See, it's only going to show localhost stuff. And you can say you can check status or anything like that. It's like if you press if you type here as cname, let's type okay. Oh no, so it's type domain or client. So you can do type domain or client. So you can do type domain or client. So this is type domain or client. So if let's say I want or everybody who look for AAA records, right? Code A records. So if I type code A, these are all the code A records that went through this machine. So this is a really good way to logging information, and you can see who and access what websites at what time. For example, this person accessed amazon.ca through this local machine, and you know that information. Another useful tool in here inside the query log is the ability to either whitelist or add to blacklist options. So on the right hand side under the action column, you have the ability to whitelist items that are blocked, which you may not want to block, or blacklist items that are allowed but you don't want anybody to access it. So there may be some some block lists that contain certain websites that you do not want to be blocked. You can either simply go in here and select that option to whitelist it, or you can actually manually add it to the whitelist on here on the right hand side. Again, I will go through them in the next few minutes, but just so know that option is available. And you can also sort this. So you can sort it by time like this. You can sort it by type. You can sort it by domain, client, status, reply, action, etc., etc. So there's a lot of options here. You can click on show all, and that will show all the data in here, and you can go all here. That will get everything into one page. So again, there are a lot of data showing up. One thing I want to point out is that if a client just quickly access something here, let's say somebody access right here, just a news article, and if you go in here, the data may not be showing up right away. So you might have to go in here and then go to dashboard and then just refresh this page, and it should show up eventually. So it should be live, it should be active, but the dashboard information here will be live for sure. This information will be live, but the query may take a little, like a few seconds lag. So keep that in mind. So keep that in mind when you're looking at this query logs. So that's query logs. Next, we're going to look at long-term data. So under long-term data, it's on the drop-down menu, have subsections. So we have graphic. So in the graphics, you can have, today's sessions. So these are the today's sessions information. I don't have many data for yesterday and the past 7 days because this is running on the lab environment, and I just installed this yesterday. So that's why. But if you look at the today's data, so some query information shows up. Again, these are good for troubleshooting. You have query logs. Again, for troubleshooting purposes, these are really great because you can change the time and range. So this is today. So if you see no data here, right, just click on here, click on up here, and then you can change it to all the time or today, or you can pick a date from here. So there are a lot of options available to filter out things. So it's up to you to select whatever you like, and this way you can actually analyze data in a more granular fashion. And here's a top list. Again, you have to click up here and select whatever the options that you like to see. And in here, this is all-time top list. These are top allowed domains, top blocked domains, and the clients of all time. This is all the clients that we have, and that way that information will appear in here. Regarding again getting up-to-date information with respect to clients, if you remove one of your clients, like let's say if I remove this client, for example, you will still see this client for a while in there, and then eventually that will drop off from here. So it will take some time because the Pi-hole need to understand that the client has been removed, so it might take a little while to get that from happening. So this is basically some overall data that you can see, the query log and the long-term data, and even the dashboard. These are some general purpose data that you can gather from this Pi-hole. On the same left-hand side menu, the next item we're going to look at is the whitelist and the blacklist. So the whitelist is a very useful tool when you need to add a domain that is in your block list of domains, but you want it to be allowed and served to your clients. So there are situations that you have a domains list that you have added, a block list added to your Pi-hole, and it's all working fine. There are few items that you need to whitelist, but not all of them. So in that situation, you don't need to delete the entire block list. Instead, you can keep this 136,768 block list, but add any item that you want to add manually under this whitelist option. Remember, in the query log, if I whitelist any of these things, let's say if I whitelist amazon.ca, this particular request, it's actually already whitelisted. So let's say this one. So anything that in red is blocked right now, anything in green is now allowed. I can click on any of these items under the action column, and that will get added to either whitelist or the blacklist. So like for example, let's block Amazon, for example. Instead of whitelisting, let's blacklist it. So if I click blacklist, and gonna say blacklist is confirmed, and if I go to blacklist right here, it'll have that amazon.ca right here. See that? So it is an exact blacklist. So you can select whether it's going to be an exact match or a regex that catch all you can type of block list. So sorry, blacklist. So the blacklist and the whitelist, they both work in a similar way. You simply can add it either through the query log right here by just adding right like that, or like removing from it like that. So if I go into here right now, if you go to whitelist, see there is an item that is exact remove, exact allowed, and in here exact blocked, and you can enable them, disable it without deleting it. So whitelist and blacklist works in a similar way. Now if you were to add something manually, let's say if I want to add cbc.ca, which is the news site, it's a Canadian news site, and you want to make it allowed, and you want to make sure it is allowed, you can add it to a whitelist, and you have the option to add it as a domain as a wildcard or a regular. So if you add regular, it looks like this. So it looks like an exact match. But if you add a wildcard, so if you go to bc.ca, I'm going to say news, and if I say add domain as a wildcard and say add to the whitelist, what that's going to do, any link associated with this website, so it could be news.cbc.ca, or it could be documentary.cbc.ca, or cbc.ca/documentary, any of that gonna get whitelisted as a result of that. Same apply for the blacklist as well. So if I also delete this one, and if I want to whitelist anything to do with this particular telemetry link site, which you don't want to do that, You can change this from exact to regex, and that's what that's going to do. It will you should be able to now modify this for the according to the regex principles. So right now it's not doing the proper regex, so I'm going to copy that link so I can delete this one, and I can add it here. And if you put add domain as a wildcard and add to the list, now all that regex information is right here. So what that's going to do is going to make sure anything associated with this particular website, any link associated with this will be allowed. So another feature of this blacklist and the whitelist is that when you have items added either through the log by clicking here into add to the block list, for example, or add to the whitelist here, or whether you have entered an item here. Let's say I enter sanuja.com and I'm going to allow everything like that. You have the ability to just simply disable it. So you don't need to delete these items. You can enable and disable, and it'll do that on the fly. So you can come back and re-enable or disable it. You also have the ability to delete it, obviously, but that's one of the key features of blacklist and whitelist. So what the blacklist and the whitelist is doing is, as I mentioned before, if you have especially a block list that is blocking items that you don't want to block, you can put it into the whitelist. If you have specific website that you would like to block, but that is not in your list of block items in the block list, you can add it to the blacklist to block them from block your client from accessing those sites. So that's what the whitelist and the blacklist going to do. Next, we're going to look at the group management items. So there are a couple of group management items. So if you click on the main one, which is the first one, which is going to be the groups. So currently we have a default group. For most home users, just leave it as it is. But you have the ability to create new groups and use that groups to arrange and configure your clients. So that's what the groups are going to do. It's just like Active Directory domain controller on the Windows that I have described on my previous videos for corporate and business environment. But for home environment, you can use some granular control using this type of group management. And again, you can create a group up here, give a description, and you can enable groups and you can disable groups, etc. Under clients, what you're going to see, you have at the top of the client section, you will have all the clients currently that are connected to this Pi-hole and that may be receiving DNS through this Pi-hole. And these are, as you can see, these are the items that you see. I'm on VMware Workstation. This is a virtual lab environment. So you see these clients showing up. You can add these clients like this, like picking it up, and you can put a description if you're interested. And you can put a comment and you can add them to a specific group. So if you go back in here and if you create a group called test group, and if I put test in here and if I add a group, so now we have a test group. Oh, sorry. The group name has to be one single name, can only be separated by a dash, just like it's saying here. Because I said test and space group, it created two groups. That's fine. If you want to create a one group as test group, test dash group would work. See, that would work. But if you put space in between, you're going to create two groups. And if you go to clients now, and now you have the ability to put it into a different groups. Remember that you have the default group, you have the test group, you have the group, and then you have the test dash group. So this is what it can do. So you can do this, you can select multiple items like that, or you can select none, you can select all. So this is basically granular control that you get from this Pi-hole software, this package. And then if you go to domains, you can now add certain domain groups associated with that, and you can control those groups through here. So you can create certain domain added to either the blacklist or the whitelist based on here as well through the group management. Again, these are more granular controls that you have. And as a home user, you may ask, why do you want to create groups? Let's say you have kids in your house and you have adults in your house. You can create, so let's delete these ones. So you have a default group and then you can call kids. So this is for children, and you're blocking more items there than, let's say, adults who are accessing. It's for us. And then what you can do, you can then pick these clients. For example, you can add those clients, and let's say some of these clients are kids, right? So let's add all of them for now. So you wouldn't have to know what these clients are, and then you can just select. You can select none here, select none, and then click kids. So this is going to be kids. It's going to be kids. So like gonna say none, and then click save. So this might be the kids items, and then the other ones may be the other items. So you had to click apply here, by the way. So that's why it didn't show up. So if I go none here, kids, and then apply, and then if we go here and then click none, kids, apply, and then these are, let's say, adults. Okay, adults, apply, and then you're gonna go those apply, and in here with this going to be, let's say, your administrator account. So you're going to keep it as default administrator clients, so you can keep that. And what that's going to do, actually, you can group them and then apply specific configuration policies based on these groups. So it gives you more granular control. And in here under domains is a similar thing. You can whitelist or blacklist domains. And finally, we have the ad list. So remember that ad list that we have added called the Stephen Black options. Is I keep saying Stephen Block by mistake. Sorry about that. On my previous video, it's actually Stephen Block. Sorry, Black, not Stephen Block. I think this is the guy's name, the Stephen Black. So sorry about that. So on my previous video, I keep saying Stephen Block, but it's Stephen Black. So this is where you actually add a block list from the internet or the block list that you have created. You can actually create your own block list. It's no problem. Like it's basically a text file containing entries for those block items. So right now the Stephen Black block list is the one that we have, and you can enable it, you can disable it, and the information is already there. And there's some details about that block list showing up here. So there's some information. Right now it says the health is unavailable. That's why there's a mark. And you can add many lists, the add block list or tracking block list to this as possible. So how do you find those block lists? So basically you can go to the internet and you can go to you can simply type Pi-hole block list, and you can type free, because free block list. So here you go. There's a website. The first one I selected, just the one that shows up. It doesn't matter where you go. So there are hundreds of block lists on the internet. You just have to find them. So like, for example, here's another block list. It's a stock block list. That's sorry, this is the one we have, Stephen Black block list we have, but we can add other block list as well. So I believe these are block lists. So right here, this is a block list. So if I copy this one, if I type it in here and go, it's should give me a block list text file, and you can open it in the text editor and you can see what it looks like. So this is a block list. See, remember I told you it's just simply as a text file. If you have a website, you can host your own block list. Like I can create a block list on sanuja.com and then see these are the things that being blocked. So if I want to add this list, this .txt file, this website allow me to do that. So I can just copy that link and then basically go into the group management add list, and I'm going to add right here. And it's gonna say so whatever that is. So let's say combo block list, let's say basic, and I'm gonna click add. So what that did, actually, it added another list in addition to Stephen Black list. So these are .txt file like I showed you. right? This is what it is. What I just added is this. It's just basically contain all of these websites that are being blocked for either tracking reasons, malware, ads, dangerous site, etc., etc. Now that's been added here. Now once you add this, another thing you need to make sure that you do is to like refresh your items, because now if you go in here, you have 136,768, but you need to run you need to go to tools and let me see where you need to go. I believe it's maybe settings. Oh no, you need to go into so let's see, we have added a new list. We need to refresh it. So to refresh, we will go to tools, update gravity. Oh, right here, yeah. So you go to tools, click on update gravity, and I'm going to click update. So what it's going to do, it's going to go back and make sure that it's been updated properly. So it has updated. And now if I go to dashboard, the number change is 177,024 items are now blocked. So keep that in mind. So if you go into group management, go to add list, and if you add a new one, you just need to make sure that you go into the tools option and go to update gravity and click update. Otherwise it's not going to be effective, right? And if you go into here add list on here, you sometimes have the green check mark or this green arrow. If you click on that, it'll tell you what's going on, and the green check mark basically saying the list is downloaded and successful, and this list is unchanged from the previous, and all that information shows up. But this, once you added in here, so let's say if I add another one, let's say I want to add this one, or write this one, not safe for work. So you copy that list and you put it in here, and we're gonna say combo block list. You can name whatever you like. So I'm gonna say combo block list, not safe for work, and I'm gonna add it. And right now it has a question mark, because reason for that is this list information is not downloaded. So if I go to dashboard, the dashboard will still read 177,024 because we haven't updated the gravity. So you need to go to tools, remember, click on update gravity and click update right here. And now if I go back after the success message up here to the dashboard, it has changed. So the domain block list now increased to 762,628 items. And if you go to group management and if you go to add list, now all of these items have the check box or that green circle thing. The green circle thing basically means that this item has already been updated from the previous one, nothing has changed. And the check one means we just added the new item. And it shows also when you expand them by clicking on here, it shows how many items in those lists and what information contains within them. And one word of caution about adding all of these lists, you start seeing certain websites that you want to have access to now being blocked as a result of adding all of these sites or all of these lists. So keep that in mind, and that's where the whitelist come in handy, where you can eliminate any item that you want to bypass this system. So that's it for the group management and add list, and this is a very important part. And again, you have the ability to enable and disable items by clicking here. So you don't have to necessarily delete the entire thing, but you can enable or disable it. But if you really don't want this item there, you can delete it. But keep in mind, when you did do that, when you go back to the dashboard will still have that items. That because of that item is still active, even though you went in here and you went to the add list and you have deleted it. Let's delete this one too. It's still there. It's still in the system, because remember, we still need to go to the tools. You need to go to the update gravity and click update. And now after the success message here, now the number has dropped 136,768, because now it has gone through and refreshed the information on the Pi hole, so that those additional items are no longer there. Next, I'm going to show you how you can temporarily disable your Pi-hole. You can go to disable options. You can disable it for 10 seconds, 30 seconds, 5 minutes, or you can even create a custom timeline for disabling it, either seconds or minutes right here. You can disable it indefinitely as well. So if I click this one, what's going to happen is in here, it's going to say the blocking disable. Keep in mind, just because of you disable the Pi-hole here doesn't mean your clients who have maybe a hard time accessing a site now going to have access right away, because the reason for that is there may be DNS caching on either the browser. In this case, it's going to be the Mozilla Firefox, or it could be being cached on Windows itself. So DNS can be cached in here. So if you disable your Pi-hole and still there are issues accessing site, you just need to go ahead and clear your DNS. So like for example, if you want to clear the DNS on a Windows machine, what you need to do is to go to the command prompt. To open the command prompt, you go to the start menu, type cmd, and just as always, and then you're going to go ipconfig, and you're going to put space / and then you're going to go flush DNS and press enter, and that will clear the DNS on this machine itself. So basically it's going to clear the DNS cache for this Windows machine, but then this browser might have also DNS cache. So in that case, you had to go to the settings of whatever the browser you are using, and you had to find the DNS information, and if there is a DNS cache going on, you need to follow a specific instruction to that browser in order to clear it. So keep that in mind. Just because of you disable Pi-hole doesn't mean everybody on your network automatically going to get access to everything, because there may be some cache items that is causing some issues. So you can enable it by clicking here, and you can disable for different periods as shown here. Also, you can go with a custom disable option as well. If you go with a specific period, like for example 10 seconds, it will create a timer, and you can actually view that timer on this web GUI. Even if I click on here, the timer should be the same. So its timer should get it should run no matter where you click on it. Like what I mean by that is that, let's say you disable for 10 seconds and you accidentally click somewhere in here, it doesn't mean that 10 seconds is not there. See, the time is still going. So you can use that as a tool to, again, to make sure that your Pi-hole is working properly or troubleshooting purposes. So that's why the disable options are there. So if you go into tools now, you have the option for Pi-hole diagnosis. You can get diagnostic data in here. The gravity, we have used gravity a couple of times before. As I mentioned, every single time you change something, if you add something to whitelist, add something to blacklist, blacklist, or you add an item to your add list, please go into tools and click on update gravity and press this button to update it, and that will make sure that your Pi-hole configuration is properly loaded on here so that it can serve its purpose as intended. And the next option is the search add list. In here, you can search anything contained within your add list. So right now, let's add this basic one again. So let's see. Let's go in here. I'm going to add this basic add list that we found on the internet. Again, you can add any add list you like. This is just to show you that you can add. So let's go back in here, not disable. Let's go to group management, add list. I'm going to add basic block. I'm just going to call it basic block. It doesn't matter. But remember, I had to run the tools. I had to go to gravity, and I'm going to update gravity. Now it's there. The reason why I did the basic one, because if I go to, because I already download the basic one, I can open it in here, and I can search for a specific item. So let's say this item. So it doesn't really matter. I pick that entry, and if you go to search add list, and if I paste it and search partial match, it'll show up where it found it, and it says, hey, I found this under this list, and it is there. And you can find exact matches as well. So what this is going to do, if you think your clients are being blocked accessing a site and you think it's your Pi-hole doing it, you can search that specific site in here, and if it shows up here and say, hey, it's there, right? Then if you want to whitelist it, you can basically simply copy this one, that one item, go to whitelist and here, and you can put a whatever description if you want, and then you can add to whitelist. And again, after you doing that, you're going to go to the tools, upgrade gravity, and click update. Again, I forgot to mention this when I was discussing in the whitelist and the blacklist options. You need to, every single time you change an item on Pi-hole, like the list, whether it's a whitelist or blacklist or adding a new list or removing a list, you need to go into the tools and go to update gravity, and you need to update the gravity. So that's why it'll make sure that it is up to date. So that's how you search items within a list. So when you have like hundreds of thousands of items, like for example in here we have 177,024 items, it's going to be time consuming if you try to look for those items one list at a time. So you can simply go into tools and go to search, and then you can search those items to check if the item is in the one of those lists. The audit logs will give you some audit information. Again, it's more granular control. You can either blacklist items or whitelist items, or you can audit items. Audit items are going to generate like more information related to that. So that's what the audit going to do. This is the log that you can create. Again, for troubleshooting purposes, same with this one. You don't need to know much as a home user, so I'm just going to quickly skip those things. I might do an advanced one, a video in a separate time. This video is already long enough, so that's why. So again, same thing, you can create a generator debug log, but again, this is more advanced, not necessarily for home users, but for other people who want to know a little bit of advanced configurations, you can go and generate a debug log like this, and that will give you some additional information that otherwise may not be quite visible on your web GUI of this application. Under network, you see all the network connections and every connected device and information related to it. You can delete them. You can search them by when it was first added to it. Like the color actually tell you when it was added, last 24 hours, and some other information. And again, these are all options that you can use for setting things up and things like that. I already went through the settings options, so I'm going to skip that. If you haven't seen that, you can watch the first part of this video. I went through all these options and why they are important. Local DNS. So under local DNS, you have the DNS records and CNAME records. So again, these are for local DNS forwarding, and you can add them at the top right here. If you have any local DNS and the associated IP addresses, I don't have any, so I'm not going to show you. Just basically, it's just like before, you can add some items in here. And that's everything for this demonstration. I hope you learned something today, and if you like these type of videos, please don't forget to thumbs up and like my videos, as well as to subscribe to my channel. I recently also started a new channel, which is a vlogging channel. I will put some videos on hiking and in Canadian winter, some hiking and driving stuff. If you're interested in that, it's called Sanuja's Vlog. Please go ahead and check that out. And until next time, good luck with your exams or whatever you do, and have a nice day.